Hello, hello. Happy Friday. It is Friday, October 30th. This is your stimulus update and Q&A. So we're talking about all things stimulus, specifically as it relates to small businesses and self-employed individuals. That's really what I tend to talk about. I am a financial literacy coach and profit strategist. And I have been going through this whole stimulus craziness with you guys for a while now, it feels like, right? But every Friday at 1:30 Central Time, I am here live on my Facebook group, Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners. If you're not in it, please join. And I'm live on my YouTube channel, Jamie Trull. So if you're joining, please make sure to say hello so that I can say hi back. So this one's probably going to be kind of short unless you guys have a lot of questions because, spoiler alert, we don't really have any updates. So I'm getting kind of tired of saying that around the back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But there's really not any updates as far as a new stimulus bill. So what I'm talking about when I talk about a new stimulus bill, it's kind of this bill that has been talked about in Congress that would be more comprehensive COVID-19 relief bill, more similar to what was in the CARES Act, maybe expanding some of those things, extending some of those things, giving some additional funding. So there really isn't much to, it's kind of same old, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, no real progress. They just are not going to get there, you guys. Before this election, it's not going to happen. And then after the election, I really don't know. I really don't know how much faith that I have, candidly, at this point in time. It may be a little bit. And it really, I think a lot of what happens after the election is going to depend on what happens on election day and what changes from the makeup of the House and the Senate, what changes, if anything, from the presidency. I think we're just going to have to wait and see how all this shakes out. And then that's going to dictate what happens in this kind of like period between when the election is and then when the new Congress comes in and when Inauguration Day is, either for our current president or for a new president. So there's a lot happening right now. It's very politically charged. There's a lot of political theater all over the place on a lot of sides here. So I don't know. A lot of people are asking me, what do I expect? I'm probably like you guys. I'm getting jaded to the point where I don't expect a whole heck of a lot anymore. So I think we just need to start operating under the assumption that we're not getting anything anytime soon. And if we do, then great. If we don't, at least we're prepared for it, right? So I think we at least need to make sure that we're utilizing the programs that are in place, that were put in place from the CARES Act or from the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. That was the one that added paid leave and things like that for COVID-19 or for having to take care of kids. Like, there's a lot of things still out there to help business owners that we need to make sure we're aware of. I just don't know how much more is coming down anytime soon. So let me see, what do we have here? Let's see. Hi guys. Yep. Happy almost Halloween. Tomorrow's Halloween. Yay. I feel like I've done nothing this year with regards to getting ready for Halloween. My kids don't have costumes. They're probably going to pick something out of their closets. It's going to be fine. We're kind of putting together, we're just, going to put together Halloween this year. So let me know what questions you guys have. If you have, I've been getting a lot of questions about when to apply for PPP forgiveness, because a lot of you guys are at that point where you're trying to make that decision. I did finally remember, I say this every single Friday, but I did finally remember to link the PPP, the article I wrote for Gusto that was about when to apply for PPP forgiveness. So remember, you have 10 months from when your 24 weeks, basically, because most of you guys are probably taking the 24 weeks, from when your 24 weeks ends. So you have a while to actually apply for forgiveness before you have to start making payments. And if your bank is asking you to make payments sometime soon, they are wrong. And you need to send them the FAQ that's on the Treasury website that actually specifically says, based on the PPP Flexibility Act they passed back in June, you have a full 10 months from the end of your covered period to apply before they can actually start requiring payments from you. So I know a lot of people really want to get a A lot of people are really wanting to get that forgiveness. And I have seen people who have gotten fully forgiven now. So the SBA for a while, some banks were taking applications and forgiving them, but the bank has to take the application. That's the first step, right? Usually it's on a bank portal or something like that. They'll have the application. You go fill it out. Then you're going to go and they're going to send that application over to the SBA. And then the SBA is going to approve it on their side as well. And then once the SBA does that, you're good. Still keep your records because they can come back. So let's remember that. But for all intents and purposes, your loan would be forgiven. So that's really what the process is. Not all banks have opened it up yet. Some banks are still kind of hanging on, hoping that they make it a little bit easier even to get forgiveness. But again, with the stimulus stalled out the way that it is, at some point they're going to have to open those portals. I think banks have just been hoping that it's going to get a lot easier and that more simplification of the process would be passed, which may still happen, but I don't see it anytime in the very immediate future unless they were to do. It's not impossible that they're going to start doing some smaller one-off things, but we'll have to, again, wait and see. That's the... I'm so tired of saying wait and see. Maybe we should just stop waiting. Just go watch The Bachelorette. That's what we're going to do instead of waiting and seeing. Okay. So Candy says overfunded. So should I still spend the full amount or only what I know I should have gotten and then give back the excess? Okay. You're a 2-member LLC. So I'm assuming, did you get overfunded because they went off of your gross maybe instead of your net to give it to you? I don't know if you have employees. If you were overfunded, so there are ways even if you were overfunded to get fully forgiven. It just depends on your situation. It's going to be harder to do if you don't have employees and don't have other major costs like rent and utilities and things like that. The application never asks you, hey, were you overfunded? What the application will ask you for is you can't pay any owners more than 2.5 times, more than 2.5 months worth of pay, right? So you're going to go to your net pay for you. It's going to be on your K1, I'm guessing, right? You're going to go to your K1 and you're going to figure out what 2.5 months worth of pay is for each owner. That's what those owners can get paid. If your loan is more than that, which it sounds like it is, you can use it on rent and utilities or to pay other employees. And those have to be business rent, business utilities, right? Things that you write off on your taxes and other employees. If you have any of those, you can still spend that money and get it forgiven. If you don't, it's going to be harder because you're going to have to sign that certification to say, I didn't pay myself more than X amount and that I used the rest of the money correctly. And if that's not true, that's going to be harder to do. Now, I would weed it out if I were you, because again, and I don't know how big your loan was, Candy. Your owner pay is at 54.5% of your full amount. Yeah, so I don't know. And so if there are no employees, the 60% doesn't apply to you specifically. It doesn't really work the same way. But you would have to have other rent and utilities and things like that to make up the rest of it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't spend it if that's going to be an issue, right? If you don't want to have to give it back, or you can spend it. Remember though, the excess turns into a 1% loan. They're not going to make you give back I would not expect that the banks are going to make you give back any overfunded amounts. I think you get to keep it. It just turns into a loan if it's not forgiven. Now, I would hold out because if something is finally passed, whether that's between November and January or after January when we have a new Congress, you might get more preferential treatment where, especially if you have a smaller loan, if it's under say 50,000 or so, you might be simplified even more to where you could get it fully forgiven, even in that instance. So I would hold out for someone like you just to make sure. That, it's only going to get more preferential, you guys. So if you might not be fully forgiven today, it's probably only going to get more preferential for you going forward, unless you're in a situation where you need to lay off employees, in which case read my Gusto article, because that's going to go into the details a little bit more about that. That's linked wherever you're watching this. Thank you. You guys are sweet. And thank you. I can't see who this is. Make sure to give StreamYard your permission. There's a little button up top on Facebook that gives StreamYard the permission to see your name. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so just going back to Candy. Candy has rent and transportation, fuel, and phone utilities under 50K. You might be okay. If you have enough of it, you might be okay. You're going to have to document it really well. And fuel is a tough one too, just in how that works and how that's typically like written off. But and I don't know what kind of company you are, if you're an LLC, if you're an S Corp, what you are. But I would hold off, because you might be able to, once they loosen the rules a little bit more, you might be okay. And again, remember, worst case scenario, it turns into a 1% loan. Okay, let's see. If we're thinking of claiming bankruptcy, will we be personally responsible for paying back the SBA loan? So I'm assuming you're talking about the EIDL loan. When you say SBA loan, both PPP and EIDL are SBA loans. PPP, you went through a lender who then goes through the SBA. With the EIDL, you go through directly with the SBA. I'm not a lawyer, so hashtag not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. Bankruptcy is not necessarily my space that I'm super comfortable sitting in. I would imagine in bankruptcy it gets washed, but again, I don't know. I've never been through the bankruptcy proceeding to really know how they go through that process and what you would be responsible for throughout. And there are different types of bankruptcies too. So, right, they're not all created equal. So I don't know. I would work with a lawyer on that, potentially a bankruptcy lawyer, about how that works out. Remember though, it depends on the amount you got from your EIDL. So anything under 25,000 has there are no collateral. There's no collateral that was required. So if you got 25,000 or under, there's no collateral, which means really, it can hurt your credit score probably if you don't pay it, but they don't have anything to come take from you, right? If you got over 25,000, and under 150,000, you still don't have any personal guarantees. So personally, you didn't guarantee it. Again, they're not going to come after your personal assets for that. Again, hashtag not a lawyer, but the recourse is lower on an EIDL loan than it is on a lot of other types of loans. So I will say it that way. Let's see. Aw, thanks, Nicole. I appreciate it. My pod buddy. Oh, and that was you. Okay, good. Good. Okay, so what other questions you guys got? I see a bunch of you guys on here. Thanks, Candy. I'm glad that helped. Trucking company. Yeah, lots of fuel. Yeah, I can see a lot of fuel on that. Okay, so what else do you guys want to know? A lot of people have been asking whether EIDL is going to get forgiven, the actual loan. I'm betting no. I don't think that it will be. But again, there's not a ton of recourse there. I don't want y'all defaulting on your loans. You want to pay back your debts always. But just, they're not going to send somebody for you to knock your kneecaps out in the middle of the night. So, but I would make a plan for repayment for that EIDL loan. And I would try to repay that. I know it's a 30-year loan. Y'all, please don't repay it over 30 years. You don't want that hanging over you for 30 years. And some of you guys are like, I'm 65. What am I going to do with a loan for 30 years? And also to mention on the EIDL advance, that is something that could change as well. And so that's another thing that might factor into your decision on when to apply for PPP forgiveness, is if you want to wait it out and see if they're going to remove the clause that says your EIDL advance amount, that $1,000 per employee that you got the EIDL grant, EIGD, whatever you want to call it, EIDG, whether that's going to be subtracted from your PPP forgiveness. Currently, when you apply, even if you qualify to get your loan fully forgiven, you get a $50,000 loan, you get it fully forgiven. If you had a $1,000 EIDL advance, they're going to subtract it. And that $1,000 is going to basically become a loan under PPP terms. So 1 year or 1% over 2 or 5 years, depending on when you got your PPP. There was in the last HEROES Act that I saw, there was a clause to remove that. And they basically said, we didn't mean to put that in there. But that has not passed. Is it likely to assume that something like that will pass? I would say maybe eventually, but that assumes something's going to pass in general. So I don't want to say it, you guys, but I almost said it. Wait and see. We got to wait and see. So if that's something important to you, we don't know if they would go back. Like if they pass that, would they go back and forgive all of those, or what would they do? You might want to just wait it out and see how it goes. Let's see. I don't think so. I think that this didn't have a ton of support. I know a lot of people wanted it, them to up the grant amount to give the full 10K. It's not impossible. So what you're talking about there is in the original CARES Act, it did say up to 10K, but the intention that the senators have said that they had was that each person who got an advance would get 10,000 regardless of like the number of employee things is not from the CARES Act. That was something that came out later when they realized, oh crap, right? We have a ton of people that are interested in free money and we don't have enough free money to give them. So we're going to put an arbitrary rule and give them all $1,000 per employee, even though we didn't even really explain that was going to happen on the application or why that number of employees was important or even how to calculate that. Now that we're going to use that as an arbitrary line. And so some senators said that wasn't their intention, that they intended for it to be a full 10K. And then there was a push at one point to get that to go to 10K. And then it kind of lost steam. I think part of the reason it lost steam is because they said, well, because you subtract that right now, the way it's written from your PPP loan forgiveness anyway, they're like not most people, but a lot of people that got an EIDL also got a PPP. So to increase your advance isn't really going to help you that much. It gives you a little bit more of a low interest loan, but you're still going to have to subtract it off of your PPP forgiveness. So I think the fight for that hasn't been as strong. Now, if they get rid of that, subtract off the advance, then in that case, it would have been real nice to get a full 10,000 per everyone. I just, with all the things going on, I'm not sure that that's that's one of the things. It would be a huge, I think it would almost double or more than double the amount of EIDL money they gave out or advance money they gave out. And I don't see that as likely. Not impossible, but not overly likely at this point. So you guys, we've got, a couple of days until the election. And I may be taking next Friday off because we're not going to know anything between now and next Friday. And I think we're all just going to need a week. Don't you think? Like, we're all going to need a week to just, whatever happens, we're all just going to need a week. And who knows if we'll even know what happens on the day of. So I may not be here next Friday. I won't be on my live. I typically do a Wednesday live as well on a particular topic. I won't be here on Wednesday. I probably won't be here on Friday either, unless there's some substantial news from a stimulus front that I'd want to bring you guys. I'm probably gonna take the week off and then I'll be back the next week to talk more about it. Also, Wednesday's probably going to be a hangover day if I'm being like totally honest. Again, regardless of what happens, there will be a lot of things consumed on Tuesday night. Hang on, I got a couple more questions in here that I want to get to. Okay, if you got your PPP after your EIDL advance and they already subtracted it, this is a moot point, correct? Yes, so a lot of people, if you got your EIDL advance first, then your PPP, a lot of your banks already adjusted that out of the PPP money they gave you. So it doesn't matter to you. Now, what would suck a little bit for you is if they did remove that clause to say, okay, well, now you don't have to subtract the advance. I think you would just probably be out of luck in the fact that they had already subtracted it when you got it. But the good thing for you is, your entire loan can be forgiven. You don't have to worry about what happens with all of that. So yes, indeed. Make sure your bank knows, like double check and triple check that paperwork to make sure that they don't accidentally do it twice, because banks are going to do all kinds of things and they may not realize that you already had it subtracted in the first place and they might try to subtract it again. So I would double and triple check that they don't do anything crazy. Okay. Whoops. Oh, it's Karen. Hey, Karen. Okay. And there was one more question and I just lost it. Oh, How many weeks do you think the second PPP loan will cover? Well, I want to say, I'm careful to say will, because will makes it sound like it's definitely going to happen. And we all know we don't know. So the second PPP loan, I don't know. I mean, I think it was similar terms. I think they had kept it at 24, if I remember correctly, from the HEROES Act. I think they had opened it up to be used for more things like PPE and stuff like that. So it was a little bit more flexible. And I don't even know, I think they took out the requirement to spend a particular percentage on payroll. Again, this is all just in the bill, which could change significantly if and when something actually passes. But it would likely, I think, be on the longer side, because I think they're realizing it's interesting to think back to the original 8 weeks, because the original 8 weeks was put into play. It just makes you like realize what our March 2020 mindset was, right? Like this was passed at the end of March 2020. And at that point, we're like, okay, we're going to close down for a little while and then we're going to reopen, right? Like 8 weeks should be enough to keep people from, like, they just didn't want people to lay off and then not hire back. Like this was the incentive to keep people on staff. And that 8 weeks came and went real fast. And I think that's when they said, okay, we got to extend this thing because that 8 weeks doesn't really make sense anymore. So we'll do 24 weeks. And now there's the talk of another round of PPP. So I think they realize at this point that this is a longer term fix. This isn't like hey, we'll just get through this 2 months that we're going to kind of sort of shut down. This is a slow bleed. And I know a lot of you guys feel that too. And I want to always tell you guys, for those of you who are in that spot where you're just like, super frustrated that the stimulus hasn't passed, or just feeling like you're like you've been left out to dry a little bit. Like I feel you. I feel there are certain industries that have just been decimated in all of this. And my heart really goes out. I hear your stories all the time. And I really feel for you guys. And I hope, I'm going to continue to give help in any way that I can, whether it's government funding help and navigating that, or if it's just in the terms of like, how do you pivot your business out of this? How do you figure out how to make money in this kind of a time? How do you navigate something like this? I'm here for you guys. And I'm just, my heart absolutely 100% goes out to all of you who are struggling with this right now. So okay, I'm going to actually be done early today, you guys. It's amazing. So I hope everybody enjoys a safe and fun Halloween weekend. And I may not see you back here next week, but I will see you back here the week after. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.